This is the Washington Week Webcast Extra.
I'm Martha Raddatz from ABC News in for Gwen tonight, and I'm joined around the table by Carol Lee of the Wall Street Journal, Eamon Javers of CNBC, Doyle McManus of the Los Angeles Times, and Dan Balz of the Washington Post. Dan, freshly back from your travels to Hollywood, Florida with the RNC. Talk to us about the mood down there and what was going on.
I think it's a little bit of clear nervousness. I think more and more of the people who were down there, and these are state party leaders basically, believe that Donald Trump is likely to be their nominee. But at the same time, they have to be ready for a contested convention, and they have to figure out a way to put on that convention so that a world that will be watching believes that the outcome is fair. This is likely to be a party that comes out of that convention divided, split. How badly that is depends in part on how events go down there. But as you talk to people privately, they clearly were struck by what Trump was able to do in New York. I think they believe that one way or another he's going to get there, whether it's on a tough first ballot or that he arrives at the convention clearly with more than the 1,237.
And Doyle, we talked about the Democratic side. We talked about Bernie Sanders, the uphill climb. But what about the movement that he started? What about his supporters?
Yeah, well, it was always clear from the beginning of Bernie Sanders' campaign that the campaign was both an attempt to get the nomination and a vehicle for building a movement. Bernie Sanders constantly said, this is a political revolution, a piece of rhetoric that, you don't usually hear in an American campaign. He always said, just winning the presidency isn't going to do it. We have to create a huge grassroots movement. Okay, he's actually done extraordinarily well when it comes to building a huge grassroots movement. He has a list of donors.
Fired up supporters,
$27 average donation, as we've heard now and then. 7 million, is it 7 million or more of those donors?
7 million contributions.
7 million contributions. Okay, we don't know exactly how many donors, but okay. That's incredibly valuable because that's the core of an organization that you can take forward. But we've heard this song before. Howard Dean, after he lost the nomination and was the great progressive hope that year in 2004, put together an organization called Democracy for America. It didn't quite take over the Democratic Party. Barack Obama, out of his very successful campaign in 2008, put together an organization called Obama for America that was supposed to be a grassroots movement that would keep going forward. It hasn't actually taken the country by storm. So this is harder than it looks. But in a sense, it's the key to figuring out the question we talked about on the show. What does Bernie want? He wants to figure out a way for this set of people to have a real impact if he doesn't win the nomination.
Okay, now the current president started his overseas journey with a stop in Saudi Arabia. There's some lingering tension there, not just because of recent relations with the Saudis, but dating back redacted material from the 9/11 Commission report.
Literally thousands of documents that provide some insight as to the Saudis' role in 9/11. And my position is all that information should be made available to the public.
Carol, tell us a little bit more about these 28 pages. I know you haven't seen them, but
I have not.
What we don't know.
They're classified and holed up in a basement in the Capitol. So it's 28 pages that will shed some light, presumably, on the Saudis and whatever role they had in the 9/11 attacks. It's classified. The 9/11 families want it declassified. Obviously, Senator Graham wants it declassified. The Director of National Intelligence is currently combing through the 28 pages and to make the determination of what can be declassified based on what, if any, parts of it will cause problems or create a national security threat either here or overseas.
It's taken a long time.
It's taken a very long time, and the president's under a lot of pressure, although he's trying to distance himself from it. But he was asked this week, and he said that he expects that this to be a process that's happening at the Director of National Intelligence to be completed soon.
Okay, thanks for that. Finally, we shift to the death of Prince. Eamon, you found yourself having to explain to your son who he is and his music.
Such a generation gap here. Kids today, I guess parents always rant about kids today.
We don't want to sound like geezers here, all right?
The best moment I had last night was explaining to my 5-year-old who Prince was, and I had pulled up the iPad and was showing him a group picture of a bunch of people on stage, and he says, "Which one is king? Which one is king?" I said, "No, Prince." He said, "Oh, okay, I got it." But look, what a cultural moment here.
Extraordinary loss.
You saw David Bowie and Prince dying in the same year. It feels like the 80s are over, definitively. And, Prince was an artist who captured so much because he crossed so many boundaries. African-American music, white pop music, a gender-bending image. So much that he did resonated with so many people. And that's why there was so much shock when we saw this news yesterday.
And lived in Minneapolis.
Lived quietly in a Minneapolis suburb. There are a handful of artists who, when they pass, expectedly or unexpectedly, particularly like this, that it's like there's a coming together in the country. It happened when Elvis died many, many years ago.
And now we have social media.
Or Michael Jackson, and now we have this. And we talk about the divided America and the two Americas and red and blue America. Yesterday it was purple America.
And everybody was doing the same thing, which was listening to Prince, including President Obama, who turned it on before he went to have lunch with the Queen and danced around the ambassador's residence.
And Prince may have been a little bit more purple than we know in this red and blue divided America. I looked up today his political contributions. He only made 2 in his life.
Did.
Right, that's a Washington thing to do. He only made 2 in his life, and they were to the Minnesota Republican senator who was ultimately defeated by Paul Wellstone. So Prince made 2 Republican campaign contributions in his lifetime, a guy who not many people would see as an icon of republicanism in this country.
Things you learn on the webcast.
That's right.
And that will have to wrap it up for now, but be sure to check out our Washington Weekly Quiz and test your knowledge of the week's events. That's at pbs.org/Washington Week. I'm Martha Raddatz from ABC News. Be sure to join us on the next Washington Week Webcast Extra.